Welcome back to another do-it-yourself repair video. In this video, I'm going to show you how to repair damage to a terrazzo floor like you see here. You can see it better at this angle. Or you can repair damage to your kitchen countertop, marble, quartz, or granite. Let's get started. Terrazzo floors were very popular back in the 1950s into the early 1960s. Floors like this today are extremely expensive, anywhere from $25 to $30, all the way up to $50 per square foot if you wanted this type of a floor. It's extremely durable, but like any other floor, it still can get damaged. I don't know how it happened, but there's a big chip, and I never fixed it, so I'm going to show you right now how it's done. Now, if you look closely, you're going to see the terrazzo floor is made up, at least the top layer is. Underneath here is concrete, but the top layer is like a sand mixed cement. That gives you the background color. And embedded in all that is a bunch of aggregate. In my case, it's white or off-white marble chips and like a forest green. You may also see glass chips used instead of the marble aggregate. And it's very common to see these type of floors in airports. So this spot here is all chipped up. In order to repair this, what I have to do first is make sure there's no loose pieces of aggregate inside here. So you take a vacuum cleaner with a brush, make sure nothing's loose. If the chip is very shallow, you can get by with just using some clear epoxy resin, which you're going to see in a minute, to fill in that area, and then finish off as you're going to see later in this video. But if it's deeper like you see here, in order to fix it, you're going to have to put some aggregate back into that opening when you pour the epoxy resin. So what you have to do is get aggregate that's as close as possible. You can see it's wider in here where the chip occurred, and the top has a little bit of a yellowish cast from being older. Very important that the floor is polished or cleaned before you do this, because what's going to happen, you're going to lighten this area and it may not blend in too good with the older finish that surrounds the area. Right over here, you can see this aggregate has grayish inside of it, or a gray cast. Some have a beige. And what you have to do is make sure this is deep enough, because once you put a thin layer of epoxy resin in the bottom, you're going to drop these in, and they have to stick up. When they stick up, when you grind this down using the diamond discs that I'll show you in a minute, it's going to give you the cross section of that aggregate, and it's going to look flat like you see here. I'm also going to be using green, so I'll drop some in there like that. And because the edge here is very shallow where it's chipped, there's one of two things that you could do, is take smaller aggregate like this. I chipped it with my hammer, crushed it a little bit smaller, did it for both the green and the white. Then you can take the thin pieces, place them just like that on the edge in the epoxy. So when you grind this down, you're still going to have some aggregate showing around the edges. If you don't want to do that and use only big pieces, you're going to have to take a carbide drill bit and drill straight down about 1/4 of an inch all the way around, give it a nice edge, vacuum it out, make sure there's no dust remaining, wipe it with a damp cloth, allow it to dry, and then the repair area will be ready, and you can use the larger aggregate all the way up to the edge. For this job, I'm just going to use smaller aggregate up to the edge. Now, there's two types that you can use, and I just want to let you know beforehand, the odor that you get out of these epoxy resins is wicked, so you definitely want to have your windows wide open, and also wear a charcoal-lined mask. It's going to absorb a lot of those odors, and you also want to get your mixing done outdoors before you bring it into your house to pour it into this opening. Gives you more time outdoors, so you don't have fumes building up inside your house. So the one here, hopefully you can see that fairly clear. It's made by Tenax, extra strong glue, titanium. It's a flowable, so the consistency is, or the viscosity is like not really thick, not really thin, it's somewhere in the middle, and it's a crystal clear. And you can use it marble, granite, quartz, ceramic, or on the floor. I like to use the pourable for here because it's going to flow over all the aggregate nice and evenly and fill all the edges, so when it's ground down or polished down, everything will be perfectly flat. If you have a chip in your floor, you have a countertop that has a chip in it, you can get by using the same crystal clear pourable resin as long as it's on a flat surface. If you have anything sideways, like on the backsplash, then you're going to want to use this one right here. This is the titanium paste, and it looks just like silicone, clear silicone. It dries with that little bit of that opaque look. I'll open this up to show you. I'm going to close it very quickly because it is bad. You see it? Has that silicone look. Cover it back up. Using the paste resin here, you could easily fill backsplashes, vertical surfaces, cracks between countertops or where countertops come together, and you won't have to worry about it running. The only issue is if you have a chip on a backsplash and you want to just use clear, this is not going to work too well because it's not going to dry crystal clear like the liquid flowable. So you're going to have to tint this using an epoxy tint, and right over here are epoxy tints. To match this background color, which is like a grayish shade, you're going to have to make it by blending in all these different colors. These are the colors I use for my floor. You can also get green and other shades. So for my floor, what I'm going to do is take this little cup here, because I already figured out the proportion. You use 1 whole can to 1 whole tube of hardener. So what I'm going to be doing here is filling this to about 1/4 inch from the top. It's going to give me a lot of that resin to use. And then once it's 1/4 inch from the top, I'm going to color it. If you have a countertop like this, experiment getting the shade right. This one is very close. You can add that to the clear to give you a shade that matches maybe in the background. And then you can put it right in using the flowable. And when it cures, you won't even see it. So for me, I figured out that it takes the full amount, 1/4 inch from the top of this little scooper with the clear resin, 12 drops of this, 1 drop of black, 5 drops of white, and 2 drops of brown. And that's going to give me a background that's going to be pretty close. It's not going to be exact. It's very difficult to get this exactly. But as long as it doesn't stand out, that's all I'm looking for. I want to see a nice flat surface. So let me take this outside, get the resin poured in, mix it, come back, and show you what to do next. Okay, so right here, you can see that resin. I'm going to make it just a hair darker. Okay, so right here you see that resin all mixed. The next thing I need to do after the color is right is to add the hardener. So for this small amount, I'm going to add about a 3/8 inch long strip of the hardener. Stir it really good and then get ready to go to work because this will harden up in about 6 minutes. So you got to work very quickly. You're going to notice it's going to start to gel when you do this. Then you know to stop using it. And you have to make another batch. So let me just get this like that. Here's the hardener, so let's do... Yeah, that's good. Plenty for that. Make sure that is mixed thoroughly. Mix it for about a minute. Mask on, windows open. You don't want to get asphyxiated with this stuff. Do all the edges. Bring the edges in. You don't want any areas that have none of the accelerator or hardener. So make sure you mix it good. And then I'm going to get going, putting in the chips. I want to get a little bit of this in the bottom just to coat it. Up the sides here. And remember, if you put more aggregate, there's going to be less of this showing for you to see. So this looks pretty good. So let me do that first. Okay. Now I'm going to take some of that in there. There. You know, try and lay it out pretty good. Let's do one over here. Let's throw in some green. Good. Now I'm going to take another white. I'm going to take a smaller green, drop it in on this edge over here. That's going to fill that little edge. I could take some whites, thin ones, see that? Drop it right in there. Another one here. You want to make sure that whole area, like right there, it's a drop off. So you want to put it in that little edge. I want to put another one here. It's looking pretty good. I can put another green one there. But make sure they stick up high enough so when you grind everything down, it'll show. Otherwise, it won't show. Let me put one on top there like that. Okay, so that looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do now is just drop that in that hole. Take the rest of this, mix it up, and just drizzle it on top. Make sure all the edges are covered. You could also use a wooden stick. Just make sure all the edges are covered. And you don't want to flood it too much either. So that looks pretty good. Make sure the edges are good. Alright, so now if I want, I can also add a little bit of white on the edge. Drop another white one in there. Looks good. There's a little bit of work involved if you want to have good results, but that is finished. Look at it sideways, make sure all the edges are covered, and then you're good to go. Now I'm going to let this sit. It's going to cure pretty hard in about 15 minutes, but I like to let it sit for 2-3 hours. I already finished some other ones the exact same way that you see here. So let's go in the other room, and I'll show you how to finish it off. Now to demonstrate on how to grind down and polish repair areas, I'm going to show you on the 2 repair areas you see here, done exactly the same way as I just showed you. This one here was done not too long ago, perfectly smooth, the edges or the margins nice and flush with the floor, and you can see it's solid. No difference at all. So what you're going to need in order to do this is a variable speed angle grinder. This one here is made by Flex, different speeds, and you're going to need this flexible rubber Velcro disc. All right, that's going to let you conform a little bit when you push down on it. There's a 3-inch version and a 4-inch. I prefer the 3-inch. And right over here are the diamond polishing pads that I'm going to be using to do this. So this one here is a 3000 grit. This is the one I'm going to use at the very end to give this floor a nice shine. Over here is a 400. That's the 50. That's the real coarse. This is an 800 at wore off, and that's a 1500. So I'm going to start off with the 50 first, just to take this area down to get it nice and flat. Very important when you begin the grinding, you want to make sure that all of the disc is concentrated on the repair area. If you don't concentrate on the repair area, you're going to end up wearing down the floor surrounding the repair area. And then when you look from an angle with the light reflecting on the floor, you're going to see a little waviness, and that's not going to be good. The only way you're going to be able to fix that is after this repair is flattened out, you would rough it up just a little bit, and you'd pour some clear over the top again, and then make it nice and flush. So be very careful when you're grinding it down using the 50 or even the 150. This is the 50, just center it, Push it on there good. Keep in mind, some dust may be generated, so you want to use an N95 mask. And I also keep the area nice and wet when I go to do this. I keep putting water on top, and that's going to keep the dust down. You notice I have this towel rolled up. I created a moat, so as I'm working in here with the water and this is spinning, it's not going to fly all over the place. It's going to stay within this area. Get that wet. Very important, when you do it, you want this angle to be right over the top. Don't lean it, because if you lean it, you're going to chew up the surface of the floor or your granite. So let me start here. See it also taking it down pretty quick. Move the water around by hand. Now we'll do more on the edges. You're going to want to do lighter pressure. Let me clean this so you can see it better. You're going to do lighter pressure around the edges to blend it in. You just want to go very light and keep it on that edge. And if anything, you want to keep it slightly higher, because I'm going to show you how to sand it a certain way that's going to ensure that the surface is perfectly flat. So a little bit more water. Now this one looks really good because it's so much smaller than other repair areas. Now I'm going to feel the edges, take a look at it, just a little high there. So what I can do is take this pad off, and then you're going to take a piece of, I guess, 1x4. You're going to hold it right against the 1x4, and then you're going to use this to blend that area in. You want to concentrate on that edge. If you do it by hand, you're going to create a little valley, and it's not good. So you definitely want to use the wood. I'm going to put a little bit of water there again. Concentrate the pressure up there at the front end. Keep feeling it. Still high there. Coming down. And if it's really high, just go over it very quickly with the grinder again. Just do a couple of passes like that, very lightly, to blend it in. So I'm just going to keep doing a little bit more there. Not bad. It's feeling pretty good. Okay. A little bit more. That feels better. Now with that finished, the next thing you want to do is use the 400 grit. And I'll place a link in the video description area so you know where to get these things. That's 400. You don't have to do it long. Just enough to get rid of the scratches created by the 50 grit. You could do 220 first. I do the 400. It appears to be no problem at all with the finish. I mean, look at that, how smooth that is. All right, so that feels good. Now I'm going to go just a little bit more and then go to the 800. Small repairs you almost never see. The bigger they get, the background is very tough to match to the original floor. So people will not see it unless they're really trying to find it. Like this one is very basically invisible. When you stand back, you can't really see it unless you get right on top of it. The background color is actually pretty good. The chip was a little whiter than I wanted, but you can see here, this is an original chip in the floor, and that one is as white as over here, and there's other spots on my floor where there's also white chips. So it will blend pretty good. Go back here. That's good. Now I'm going to go to 800. That's the orange. Water. You can hear it's a lot different, a lot less abrasive sounding. Take this off. Nice, really nice. And the colors are perfect. So now I'm going to go to 1500. Concentrate most of it in that spot. Beautiful. And of course, if this was glass chips, you could sand it down just as easy, or grind it down. So that's pretty good. So now I'm going to wipe that area. You can see how nice that is. All right? So I'm going to take the 3000 grit now, just to put a little bit of a sheen in that area, and then that one's done. Then we'll do this one next. The same exact process if you're on a granite countertop. You do not want to use this to take that repair area lower than the countertop. Keep it slightly higher. Take your time with the block. Blend it in so the countertop remains flush, and when you look sideways at it with the light shining on it, you don't see a wavy surface. So over here, this is 3000. Just blend into the sides. Let's go over that one again if I want. You know what? That looks pretty good. Wipe it off. Okay. Let's do this one. Okay, that looks good. Now, go a little bit with the wood block. Keep most of the sanding in one area. Okay, so the repair area is here. This is the other one I did, and that was the older one. So if you take your time, you can expect very nice results. Thanks for watching.